Welcome to the Penny Z Show, where you get to learn how real people overcame real issues. Get ready to take notes and, most importantly, take action. Here's your host, Penny Z.
Hello, everyone. This is Penny Z with the Penny Z Show. We are here transforming lives, one life at a time, with topics that are real, relevant, and relatable. Today, I have a special guest, Carmen Bucci, and I can't wait to introduce his backstory and have him talk to you about his I'm Not Enough story to how he empowered himself to be more than enough. But before we hear from Carmen, let me give you a little bit on his bio. Carmen Bucci is a former professional baseball player. He has dedicated his life to helping student athletes improve their mindset in order to build their self-esteem, confidence, and have every day and every life success that they deserve. Carmen is a graduate of Northwest University. Testimony from one of Carmen's fans is Carmen Bucci was an excellent speaker and guest. Our student athletes could certainly relate to his talk and his topics. Carmen touched on many topics such as pressure and stress from sports, development, and performance from the youth at every level through their professional ranks. Parents, friends, teammates, school pressure, and influences are all those that surround you in your sports experience. Carmen touched on all of these basic topics with our students. Carmen presented with humor, realism, sensitivity, and passion, all of which hit home and made a connection with our student athletes. Carmen's talk is both meaningful and purposeful. So we can't wait to hear about Carmen. But one kind of interesting fun fact that our listeners might want to know about Carmen is Carmen in April of 2018, so not so recent past, drove around the country. And while doing so, he gave 30 talks in 30 cities in 30 different states in 30 days. That's pretty amazing. So please welcome with me to the Penny Z Show, Carmen Bucci. Carmen, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Penny. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
It's awesome to have you. So as we've spoken before, and I've met Carmen through a mentor program, and so we've known each other for a while, we are in a series called Overcoming I'm Not Enough, to empower our listeners for two things. First off, to feel not alone, that there's someone out there that has a similar story that they have, and also to give them tools and techniques from our guests so that they can overcome their I'm Not Enough story. So Carmen, would you share a little bit of your backstory with us?
Sure. So as you mentioned in the intro, when my senior year at Northwestern University, I was drafted by the San Diego Padres and spent time in their minor league system. And it was something I wanted to do since I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old. Always wanted to be a professional baseball player. And things were going great, I thought. And then I remember the day in October of 96, I got a phone call at my apartment in Los Angeles. And the gentleman on the other end, who I never heard of before, who was new in our organization, called to let me know that I was being released from my contract.
Mm-hmm. Sorry to hear that, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I was devastated at the time, but I didn't believe him. So I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a friend of mine playing a gag on me because I had never heard of this guy before. So I was kind of mouthing off to him and making jokes and saying, oh yeah, tough guy, I'll see you in March. Just have my jersey hanging in the locker. And he was kind of stunned on the other end and was like, I don't know what to say, but we wish you good luck. And unfortunately, you're not going to be coming to spring training. And he hung up. And still thinking it was a joke, I just wanted to make sure. So I called our front office and talked to a woman that worked there as kind of a liaison to the players. And she confirmed, yes, this gentleman does work for us and his position. And I said, oh. And she said, why? What's wrong? And I said, well, I think I was just released. And I mean, my heart sank. My stomach was sick. I couldn't talk. I was having trouble breathing. I remember it like it was yesterday. And a lot of it was stress and worry, not just about the playing part and being on a team and playing ball, but because this was a dream I had since I was just a little kid. And it was also something that I felt like was a dream of my dad's as well. So after that, everything just kind of spiraled from there and took a major downturn in my life for quite a while.
So in discovering this and having this unfortunate situation, because I can feel your pain, I can feel it in my stomach right now. Those of us that have, gone through something where you expect one thing, like I was trying out for the cheerleading squad in high school and didn't make it in my junior year. And I just feel that pit in my stomach right now as I'm thinking back at that time and sympathizing with you. What were some of the things that you experienced, and what were some of the things that you did to help yourself to come out of it? Because obviously we had this devastating situation in your life. How did you identify your feelings around that, the dark time? And then what were some of the things that you did in order to help work through that for yourself?
Well, they were pretty dark times. I mean, I have dealt with depression for a long time, and it really started then because that was the first time in my life where I had something, to me, that tragic happen, without counting death in the family or anything, but something that I felt happened to me that I always felt like I lived a pretty charmed and easy life. So, battling depression for a long time, the anxiety, the stress. And that's why I loved getting a chance to talk about it on here with you, is because that's exactly what I felt. I'm not good enough. I don't know anything else. I don't know how to do anything else, or at least that's what I thought. How am I going to be successful in anything else that I do? I've been doing this since I was, 5 years old, and, ended up drinking too much, ended up just feeling not worthy of anything. I down the line got married, tried to start different businesses and wasn't successful. I just wasn't confident in myself anymore. Ended up in a divorce. All the things that could have gone wrong seemed to have gone wrong.
It's that spiral effect, right?
Yeah, it was a big spiral effect. I just could not get out of that funk no matter what I did. Most of the time, to other people, to my friends or my family, they would have thought I was the happiest person in the world. I was great at hiding it, but I would rather just sit inside and curl up in a room by myself and be left alone. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to do anything. And again, no matter what I did not feel confident in myself at all. And the big thing that I guess changed for me, one was something that I was against for all these years, which was going to see a therapist. And that not only helped through transition of divorce, but I learned a lot more about myself, and I learned a lot more about why things affected me the way they did. And then the other thing was, and I actually talk about this in my talks with the kids, is I found my actual goal sheet that I made. I was putting stuff in storage and cleaning stuff out as I was going through the divorce. And I found this that my dad actually saved, that I made it when I was 14 years old. So I found the exact page, and some of the things were reminders of what I learned at a young age about the mind and how that all works. And that helped, that along with the therapy and talking things out and seeking help and seeking answers really, really helped transform my thinking. It got me out of that funk. I was able to go on and start being a little more productive in my life.
Absolutely. I mean, Carmen, first, I want to acknowledge you if I can, because it's hard to recognize those things and be able to look inside and look ourselves in the mirror and be able to make those changes, and also to be able to share. And perhaps maybe, and I'm not trying to be gender specific, but as a man, I know that is maybe more challenging than in a woman's space. So I want to acknowledge you. I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to acknowledge and thank you for, sharing what you have experienced and what you're going through. And there's a couple things that you mentioned that I want to kind of go into. You talked about hiding it. And I think we as humans, whether it's embarrassment or we're not feeling good enough, and you also used not worthy, I think the two are almost hand in hand. The more I do interviews, the more people feel not good enough or not worthy enough. But you talked about hiding it. How were you able to work on not, we all hide stuff. I mean, we've got a personal persona, and then we've got our, behind closed persona to some extent. But how were you able, was it through the therapy? Was there other things that you did to be able to break through that and to maybe share and be so authentic, like even today and with the kids right now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I learned I was a very selfish person, but that fear of not being good enough was because I felt like people had a head start in their areas of life or business or career, whatever, that I didn't have, because now I'm starting all over again. And that was a scary time to think about that, because if you want to compare where I was with baseball to where they're on their career, if they left their career and started to get into baseball, I'd have a head start. I was very happy about that. But the way I hit it was, I think part of it was because I was so selfish. I mean, I had a father who taught mental toughness classes from the time I could remember being a little kid. So how do I show weakness when I'm supposed to be mentally tough? I'm supposed to know how to get out of it. And yes, the therapy helped break through that. Absolutely. But for me, I guess it was almost like having two personalities in a sense, which is probably a reason why my marriage and stuff didn't work out, because if it benefited me and that meant being happy out in public, and not being a real genuine person, and then I can do that. I'll put on a happy face, and I may not be very engaged and I may not be very with it in there, but it's okay because it made me feel better. I wasn't thinking about somebody else. But then once I would go home and I was alone, I would have that breakdown. And that for me, that's how I was able to do it. I didn't want to admit that things bothered me, and be vulnerable, like you said. So it wasn't that hard to hide it, because hiding it benefited me. People thought I was a good guy. They thought I was the life of the party. They thought I was a happy-go-lucky person. And that meant that I really wasn't being honest and genuine. And the therapy really, I mean, I fought the idea of therapy. I thought it was hokey my whole life, because, again, I'm supposed to be mentally tough from my upbringing. And it was the best thing that I ever did.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, you're not the only guest on the show that has talked about therapy or counseling, going through weekend retreats, spiritual or self-help or other types of things. So, congratulations for you for doing that for yourself and for your family, and as well as being able to share it, because you're not the only one. You're not the only human, and you're not the only male that is going through this. A lot of us humans hide things and protect ourselves, whether it's out of fear, out of, selfishness, as you had mentioned. So I just want to let you know that you're not the only one, which is a big reason why I do the show and why I share these amazing stories, because people out there will relate exactly to what you're talking about, the having to start over, to not feeling worthy enough, to having to have that, kind of that public persona. So, congratulations to you.
Thanks.
For going through that transformation, and for getting the help, and for sharing it with us and with your students. So I would love to know if there was anything else that you did in your transformation to obviously become the person that you are today, to be able to help the athletic or the students in general that you talk to, and share with us how that's evolved into what you're doing today.
Sure. I think it was taking that risk. And it was, you get to the point where you're tired of living the way you are, and something's got to change. And it's either I think I hit that breaking point where either I will no longer be around here, because the thoughts of suicide and hurting myself, came up, and I had family intervene with me. So I think I hit that breaking point. I think looking at my kids really was finally a wake-up call. And I just knew that I couldn't live like that anymore. So to me, I thought, well, it can't get any worse. I might as well give something new a shot. And I've always had this urge to go out and speak and to help people, but I wasn't really sure what to share until all of this happened and came to be, that I realized this is what I need to go out and talk about and share. And it became such a mission, because I don't want other people, and I know they're going to, but I don't want people to go through what I went through or feel what I felt. I never would wish that upon anybody. And I get emotional just thinking about it and talking about it. But if they are going to go through it, then I want them to know, just as you said now, that they're not the only one, just like I wasn't. And I had to come to realize that, because you feel like you're on an island, no matter how many times people tell you you're not. So I want them to know that they're not the only one, and to try to give them some tips or some ideas that they can hold on to come out of it. And it still kind of goes back to sports and baseball, where if you're in a slump in baseball, how do you get out of it? Well, a lot of it starts with your mind and your thoughts, not just your physicality, and your abilities. So I wanted to give them some kind of tools to be able to get through this, because they're going through one of the hardest times in their lives, which is becoming going through puberty and becoming young adults, and they have so many choices. And now when I talk about this in the talk, they have it way worse than I did at that age, because they deal with social media and so much more of the bullying and things that go on, that every mistake they made is out there and people can post it. I don't think I would have been strong enough to handle that. So if I can give some kind of advice and guidance, then I want to touch as many lives as I can to just let them know that it's going to be okay. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what led me to going on the talk and, around the country and trying to speak to as many student athletes or people. And I think it translates to adults as well. I was an adult when this happened. I wasn't a high school student athlete or college. So I think it relates to anybody in business and life and in any stage.
Absolutely. Well, but a lot of the things that we learn as adults come from our childhood experiences, how to cope, how to manage.
Yeah.
And so you touching the youth and touching, students at a younger age helps them at least hear, connect, maybe get help, so that they may not have to go through it like maybe you and I as an adult. Maybe they can pivot when they're in school or when they're in high school or elementary school because of your talk and your experience and sharing. I mean, that's so powerful. I just want to thank you for doing that. Yeah.
I hope they recognize it early. You said the key word there, the coping. I learned in therapy, I had no coping mechanism. I had no coping skills. Things always seemed to go well for me. So this was that was the first time that it was like a real slap in the face that someone told me, hey, you're not good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and some kids have it good as a child. So you have to deal with, like you said, coping and a different experience as an adult. And other kids are having a real, for lack of a better word, crappy childhood. And they have to learn how to cope, right? And how do they take their emotional and physical experiences that they're having, being able to deal with it as a child, but then how do they be able to take it into adulthood and not have that be an issue or be able to manage it better? Yeah, absolutely. You had mentioned about, being alone, and I just wanted to touch on something and get your experience. So, I was in what I call a situational fog myself. 3 years ago, I was going through a separation, which led to a divorce. I moved, I pivoted my career, had to start over, went through financial roller coaster rides. And so one of the things that helped me get out of it, and I think you touched on it, so I'd like to hear more, is when I was in my situational fog, and I call it situational because for me it wasn't clinical, and we went through different types of activities to figure out if it was and I needed to go down a different path or medication or a different type of therapy type of thing. And for me it was more situational for me, but I know for people it is clinical as well as situational. But you had mentioned, and one of the things that I was given as a tool was to go out and help other people. And even if it was go and open a door for someone else in your day that day, or to compliment someone, just starting simple, or going out like you're doing now and speaking, which is a bigger deal. I wanted to see what your experience was and what you felt like when you went out and helped, because it was like we're in our own world, and you've talked about being in your own world and you just wanted to stay home or be in the room and not really be out there. But then when you realized getting out there helped others help you, how did that transform in your life?
I think when I go out and talk, a lot of times before I walk on stage, I get a feeling that I need this as much, or if not more, than they need to hear what I'm saying. It's almost another form of therapy for me to constantly talk about it. And something you just said about even opening the door for someone in that little moment, something as simple as holding the door. You can't be focused on yourself. Mm-hmm. So anytime you're doing good for others and you adopt that attitude of gratitude that a lot of people talk about, it's not only satisfying, but it really does make you happy. You forget, even if it's for a split second of holding the door, you forget what's wrong with you or why you're not feeling happy. So to me, it's another form of therapy that I don't think I could live without. And I'll continue to talk to a therapist for a long time. It helps. But now this has become my therapy, that moment that I'm on stage talking, or I'm doing a webinar or working with somebody, or even talking right now because it's for somebody else, you lose that sense of I'm down, I'm upset, I'm depressed, I'm angry, because you're focusing on somebody else. There's no way for you to be both. So that you hit it right on the head. Even the littlest gesture of being nice and thinking of somebody else makes the world of difference. So it really was, as I mentioned, I was very selfish before. So it was trying to be more gracious and be more giving than taking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations. And I'm glad that you're out there giving. And I love what you say, the attitude of gratitude. That's amazing. We need to have that part of our daily affirmation. And you mentioned about giving. I have a mentor who used to say, you can never outgive the system. So when you're feeling down, go give. And I just love that.
Yeah, I do too.
You know, we've talked about your journey, Carmen, and we've talked about obviously what you're doing and helping with the kids. We are unfortunately getting close to the end of our show, and I never like to let my guests go because I feel like I could just be in your space and talk to you for hours and hours. But we do need to close shortly. So I like to ask my guests two questions, or two things. First thing is, you know, for those out there that would like Carmen to come and talk to their students, come and talk to their corporations, be able to share his experience and help them, Carmen, how do they reach out and how do people contact you?
Great. A few things. One, you can go to my Instagram page, which is at CBucci55. So that's my Instagram, CBucci55. Email as well, Carmen@CarmenBucci.com. And those are probably the easiest ways to reach me there, or through eventually CarmenBucci.com, which should be up by the beginning of pretty soon. I won't give it an exact date, but pretty soon. So, and I'm glad you're ending it soon because I'm Italian and I can talk a lot. So.
So if there's anything else you would like to share as it relates to your business, you know, if there's a perfect type of clientele or anything you would like to share more. And then our final question to you, if you have any last words of wisdom for our listeners before we close the Penny Z show today, that would be great.
Sure. I mean, as far as clients go, I'm happy to talk and work with anybody that wants to, that might need some help, or that thinks that I might be able to, you know, benefit them in some way. So anybody I'd love to talk with. My biggest thing I try to follow now is the be, do, have, basically principles, meaning you envision what you want, who you are. You have to know that you can only be what you already are, and you are many things. Then you have to put unwavering commitment behind it and have action, and then you will have all of the things. But unfortunately, society a lot of times looks at you as have, do, be. First, you have all the things, the flashy car or the money or the successful business or the whatever, and you do what everybody tells you to do. Then maybe if you try hard enough, you could be a success, and that's backwards. So I try to just live with be, do, have. And the last thing I'll say is I really, really appreciate you having me on. I'm so glad that you are doing this podcast. I think any bit of information anybody can get to help their lives is worth it, even if it's one word or one sentence. So I'm inspired by you, looking at the background there, the word inspire. So please continue to do this. And I know you're going to be affecting and changing a lot of lives as well.
Well, thank you, Carmen. That's very kind and very humbling. I appreciate it. And I receive your thanks. And I also give you thanks for being on the show and being so vulnerable and sharing your story with myself and our listeners. So at this point in time, in order to get more information on Carmen and how you can reach him, we too will also have all of his information on our website, www.thepennyzshow.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it. Probably if there's a social media site, you can find The Penny Z Show. We ask that you like and share us because our goal is to reach and help 1 million lives worldwide. And everyone out there, thank you again for listening to The Penny Z Show. This is Penny Z. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear more, including specific ways to empower yourself, go to thepennyzshow.com.